Welcome, game chasers everywhere, to episode 19 of the Collecting Confidant with your host, GunstarHero. And I'm back this week with the talk of the internet, the game that has taken the world by storm over the last week since it was released on July 19, 2022. We are talking this week about Stray, which was developed by BlueTwelve Studio. This is their first game and published by Annapurna Interactive, which also published The Pathless, which we talked about a few videos back. This game is a treasure. This game has Game of the Year written all over it. I am so excited to talk about this, to be part of the hype around this game, which is well deserved. And I'm just going to say right now, I applaud the developer and the publisher for every bit of hype and every accolade they're getting. It completely deserves it. Let's get into the game, its history, and why you should consider picking up the physical copy of this for your collection, because I'm telling you, we're talking about potentially one of those once-in-a-generation games, kind of like very similar to what Journey was to the PS3 generation. I'm starting to get those vibes about Stray in terms of this game's going to be important, and watch out for it, especially for BlueTwelve. I am so fascinated in what they're doing next after this. Okay, enough of me rambling. Let's get into the game. The gameplay itself is a third-person adventure game where you play as a cat. No name, a stray cat that is separated by its family and the outside, and through some accident ends up falling to an abyss, gets separated by its family, and ends up landing in this abandoned city with like a cyberpunk vibe that is completely and utterly populated by robot companions, which used to be the servants to their human masters. Now the humans are gone. You're going to be exploring this abandoned city, and I'm telling you right now, the art design, the graphics are lush, decadent, gorgeous, so much attention to detail. And I kept saying to myself, this game does not deserve to look or feel or play this good, based on the fact that it's a first outing by a relatively unknown developer with a very small team. And I mean that in the best way possible. This game just surprised the hell out of me in terms of how good it is for how few people worked on this. The graphics are insane, utterly gorgeous. The character design, these companions are just so cool in terms of how they have the screens on their head and how they emote through the designs on their faces. You're going to be exploring this abandoned world, unraveling the secrets of it and figuring out what happened to the humans, why it came to be like this, and also trying to find your way back out to reunite yourself with your family. So over the course of the early part of the game, you will meet up with this robot companion. It's a drone named B12, which, if you think about it, is pretty much named after the developer itself, BlueTwelve. And this drone is going to serve several specific purposes. Number one, it's going to help you interact with the world in terms of communicating with the robots, because obviously they have their own language. And it also has a way to communicate with you in your cat language so that it can understand your emotions, what you're trying to do, guide you where you need to go. As well, the drone is able to, in a very cool fashion, digitize real-world environments and store them in your backpack for use in later quests, and then also in terms of hacking terminals and other objects to help you progress through the game. Now this game, remember, you're a cat and it's very cat-like. There is no GPS, there's no mini-map. You're a cat, you're curious, you like to explore, and this game encourages you to explore this semi-open world environment, but don't let that deter you in terms of it being too complicated or too overwhelming. The game design is very good, and the developers have a very great way of getting you to navigate across the world without ever making you feel like you're stuck or overwhelmed. And this is actually controversial in terms of the way they've done the traversal. Some people don't like this. I think it's perfect in the sense that there are only certain platforms you can climb up to, like air conditioning covers, awnings, pipes. You can't just go anywhere you want, though. You'll actually, when you go up to something that can be traversed, you'll see a little X button show up next to it, and you'll know that you can climb it and go to the next stage. This was done on purpose because the developers, during some of the earlier testing, found that some of the players who were playing this were missing their jumps, and when they were seeing this in retrospect, it didn't feel very cat-like, because if you've ever owned a cat, you'll know that cats are very graceful and rarely, if ever, miss their mark. So that's what's really cool about the fact that with this game is that you're always going to make your jumps, and it always feels like you're moving. It never feels like you're stuck. So the game really has a good sense of rhythm, which I really appreciated. Like I said, the graphics are utterly insane. So good for the small development budget and team. And then you've got the sound. The developers admitted that they were directly influenced by the 1982 film by Ridley Scott, Blade Runner, and it shows all over the place, from the neon, the rain-soaked streets, the darkness, and that soundtrack, which just, it's eerie. It punctuates the paranoia, the loneliness, the melancholy of this environment, and it really just harkens back to that incredible Vangelis score from Blade Runner. Really sets the tone, really just grabs the feels all over the place and just immerses you in this gameplay. Every time I left the game, I was just waiting to come back and play it again. It really drew me in. Now, I will say the game isn't very long. It can be completed in about 5 to 6 hours, but like I've said multiple times on this show, a small game that's very short can sometimes be better than a 100-hour game, and this game does not fail in that regard. It is paced so well. It just keeps you moving from scene to scene, moment to moment. The lore that comes out, the secrets you uncover, the relationships between you, the robot, and these companions, and the outsider group within them just is so compelling and so emotional. You really feel for this cat. You want to protect it. And that is actually lends into one of the big themes of the game and one of the meta themes, and the fact that there's this kind of like voice of God theme permeating the entire narrative, in the sense that, I'll give you an example. There are certain sequences where you'll see arrows that were laid out previously for you. It's almost like as if whoever is running this city was expecting you to arrive, and you'll see these arrows that direct you to where you need to go next. And if you think about it, can a cat really understand all these concepts of arrows and directions that we take for granted? Probably not. So the fact is that the cat is so dependent on your input to keep it safe and keep it moving to its destination. I just find that really fascinating, and especially if you look at the name of the drone, B-12, it's named after the developer. And of course, the drone is the thing that allows the cat to communicate and to keep it safe, and also to escape some of the threats in the city, which would be like the Zerks, which are like this bacteria that are predatory, can eat animal flesh, human flesh, even robots. So you'll be having to escape this, but then the drone will help you in the combat sequences. There's this sense of care and this sense of vulnerability that the cat has, and your role in keeping it safe, that I think just lends to the emotions and the compelling nature of this game. So I'm trying to skirt around this to not spoil this too much, because like I said, it's a very short game and I don't want to give anything away in terms of the story, but it's truly an incredible narrative with an open-ended ending that would suggest a potential sequel, and I'm keeping my fingers crossed, because like I said, now this developer BlueTwelve is on my radar. I'm struck by what they're able to do, and I can't wait to see what they do next. So let's talk a little bit about the history before we get into the physical versions of this game. So this game has been in development for about 7 years now. It actually started development back in 2015 by two former employees of Ubisoft Montpellier. Specifically, that would have been Colas Kula and Vivian Mermet-Guillonet, who branched off of Ubisoft because they wanted to do like a smaller independent project with a very tiny team. So they started a developer blog, started posting videos of the work in progress, and then eventually in April 2016, they caught the attention of Annapurna Interactive, who signed on as the publisher and said, listen, we're just gonna stand back and let you guys do your thing with this. We're gonna give you full creative license, let you work with your small team and produce the best thing you need to do. So they started working on this over the few years, started building the hype. I thought that what was really cool about the design itself was that they based the slums in this city off of the Kowloon walled city in Hong Kong that was demolished back in the mid-90s. And if you're familiar with the Kowloon walled city, this place was infamous for being like this tall structure, the city of darkness as the local residents used to call it, and it was rife with prostitution and triad members and gambling. It was like horrific, and even the police were afraid to go into these places. So you can definitely feel that presence in this game where, like I said, you have these bacteria that are roaming around that threaten to eat everything in sight. Plus, on the upper Midland part of the city that is underneath the dome that covers everything, there's no light coming through. You have these sentinel predator drones that are going around enforcing the laws of the city and keeping the inhabitants at bay. There's a very cool post-apocalyptic edge to this, but also contrast to that is just the warm sense of being this cat and acting like a cat. Because the fact is, yes, you're traversing and unraveling this mystery, but then at any time you want, you can meow, or you can go rub up against a stranger's leg, or you can go scratch a carpet. There's so many cool things of just a cat being a cat in its natural essence, in addition to being curious, wanting to complete this adventure and get back to the outside. So I think you figured out that I can't gush about this game enough, but I'm also just trying to skirt around the elements to not spoil this wonderful adventure for you. So let's get into the physical version and wrap this video up. There are going to be 2 versions of this game that you can purchase. The one I want to focus on is the one that's being made available via www.iam8bit.com. There's going to be a collector's version for $44.99 US, which is going to include the game, and then of course a premium matte Blacko sleeve on the front of the cover, some art cards inside, a poster, and an actual patch rendering of the game's character, which is open for pre-order right now. There's no real deadline, but like anything on iam8bit, there's going to be a limited number of quantities. They don't specify how many copies are out there, but it won't be on the website forever. So if you're interested in getting the collector's edition, you'll probably want to hop on this very soon, because this game is picking up a lot of hype, and I see it selling out kind of like Disco Elysium did. That said though, if you're not into the whole time constraint thing, FOMO thing, you can go to standard retailers like Best Buy and GameStop. This game will be getting a standard version on September 20th, 2022 for $39.99 US, and will be available everywhere, online, retail, you name it. So, man, this game caught me by surprise. I've been talking to everybody about this. I keep thinking about it. I want to go back and play it. My only minor gripe with this game, if I had one, is the fact that there's no incentive to 100% it. So there's this one thing in the game where the drone has memories that you collect that, again, further elaborate what happened to the city. And there's also patches you can find in saves and different parts of the city. There's no real incentive for getting all of these because it doesn't have any bearing on the ending you unlock. So that's the only thing. If there is a sequel to this game, I'd like to see more emphasis on giving an incentive to finding all the collectibles. But that said, it's a minor gripe. This game is an absolute experience, is sublime. I'm predicting a definite Game of the Year nod, something that you should not pass up. This has been the 19th episode of The Collecting Confidant with your host, GunstarHero. You can pick this game up now on PS4, PS5, and Windows, and physically on only PS4 and PS5. Thank you for watching. Make sure you like and subscribe, and we'll see you on the next one. Later, Game Chasers, and peace.